Welcome to True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada, where we take a deep dive into mental health's many physiological and psychological aspects. This is the show for you if you're looking for motivation, inspiration, knowledge, and solutions, and that's what we're all about here at True Hope Canada. And True Hope Canada is a mind and body-based supplement company dedicated first and foremost to promoting brain and body health through non-invasive nutritional means. For more information about us, please visit truehopecanada.com. Today on the podcast, I have the pleasure of welcoming Marie Birtel. Marie uncovers patterns of dependency in family systems, and thanks to her experience as a journalist and a university lecturer, as well as her work in children's hospices and as a psychological counsellor, she's able to bridge those two worlds. Her focus is on helping people recognize stressful systems and liberate themselves from them, enabling them to lead a free and happier life. Today on the show, we're going to be discussing understanding transgenerational trauma. Enjoy the show. Okay. Hi, Marie. Welcome to True Hope Cast. I really appreciate your time today. How are you? What's going well?
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. And you're in the south of France, so you're 9 hours ahead of me. So I just wanted to say again, I really appreciate you taking the time this evening to talk with us. And how amazing is it that we're able to actually do that with the technology that's available?
Exactly. Amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So we're going to be discussing understanding transgenerational trauma today. But before we jump into that amazing topic, can you just give us a little bit of an understanding of who you are and what it is that you do, please?
Sure. So I'm a psychological advisor and an author. I just got 40 years old. I'm originally from Germany, and I live at this point between Germany, Hamburg, what is very much in the north, with very bad weather all the time. So I moved to south of France like 2 or 3 years ago. So I'm switching between both of these countries at this moment. And what I do is I work a lot in educating people about narcissistic abuse and transgenerational trauma. And I published my book, I Love You When, exactly yesterday, 1 year ago. So it's happy birthday to the book. And it's about exactly this topic, to educate and bring awareness to people that trauma is not a thing that you have in one generation, but it goes from one generation to the next. And this is what, yes, I do with passion.
Why do you do it with passion?
Because, that's a good question. I heard once a PhD saying, dealing with narcissistic abuse or topics like this, you never do it without personal memory or personal, I can't find the word, experience. Thank you so much. I'm German, so my English is not perfect. So okay. Thank you for this. So yes, exactly, like experience. So I have developed in my own life very late that I come from a narcissistic family. And I had a lot of symptoms since my childhood. I grew up with 2 brothers that also had symptoms. And what was so interesting with this is that from outside, everybody would think like our life is perfect because, you know, the values of people nowadays is like richness is materialistic. So from outside, everybody would say like, oh, you have a perfect life. Everything looks good from the outside. But what is going on behind the scene, behind the walls, is not really shown. So yeah, and I came through these experiences, and I said, I'm writing since my childhood, and I said I have to write a book about it and to help others about it. That's the passion that I bring with. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Yeah, I think what's interesting you said there is in regards to the definition of like wealth, health, success, what that actually means, whether that's as an individual or as a society. I think for a lot of people, especially younger generations, they might feel that to be healthy, to be wealthy, and to be successful is to have 1 million Instagram followers and to have loads of money and to have 4 cars. But that really for me certainly doesn't translate, for me to have a successful morning. I rather think of it like that, whether to be able to exercise and drink water and take my supplements, or to have health. I think that you can actually you can have a disease, you can have an illness, but still be healthy in regards to your application to getting better. I think there's very interesting definitions, and I think that for a lot of generations, that's certainly changed what those things actually mean. So interesting point. I'd love to just jump straight into what is transgenerational trauma, and what does that mean for people?
Well, so transgenerational trauma is a topic that I know is not very much talked about. I know the media and probably social media is like talking more and more about it. And in fact, it's about, I start with explaining a little bit about what happens when you are traumatized. So trauma, definition of trauma means something happens that your inner self can't build in your inner self, that happens in the outside. So I always work with examples. So I give you one example. So we are born into this world as a baby. My opinion is like, when you are born into this world, nobody is born evil or bad. So you're coming to this world, you have two parents, if it's working good. And these parents are, they have the responsibility to bring you into this world, to give you comfort, to teach you how to get into relationship, to teach you how to be in this world. So what you have also in your inner self built up is that your mom is saving you or helping you, breastfeeding you, like she's the one who is like a caregiver, and also your dad should be a caregiver. So this is something that you grow up and you have like your parents, and then you get like 18 years old, healthy, you can build healthy relationships, you can build a healthy self-esteem, what is very important for us. If you are born into a family system that doesn't give this, and it doesn't mean it has to be like one parent is absent or something happens to one parent, so that's the reason why there's only one person educating. This is not what I'm talking about. So trauma means like there's somebody in your family system, like one of the parents, who traumatizes you by, for example, hitting you, abusing you emotionally, physically, psychologically wise. So this is what I call trauma. So this is something that a child can't get rid of, because I always say, like, no child can just take the bag and run away. You are totally dependent on your parents. So what you do automatically as a child is like you do everything that your parent loves you or does what you want to. If it's not working out, and this is very intelligent from our psychology, you probably know it, we are saving ourselves in splitting this away. Like, okay, this is a picture, my dad is like slapping me, so I'm just not, I don't want to see it, I can't see it because I don't survive, so I'm splitting it away. And this is called trauma. This is when it happens that some people, they get older, they get, they move out, and then one day at 20, they don't even realize or remember that the dad was slapping them, or they internalize it and say like it's normal. So this is probably like, this is what trauma means. So generational trauma, transgenerational trauma means we are traumatized. We used to say, okay, we learned being loved means we are being abused. And this is like in all, what I just said, emotionally, sexually, these ways. And then we take this is the way how somebody loves me. So this is how we learn how to love. So what is the normal result? We do the same, because if we love somebody, we do it. And this is when I say, like, the father hit the son grows up, he doesn't work out the trauma, he goes into a relationship when he's an adult, he's probably having a baby with this woman, And if something is going wrong, he's redoing exactly the same what he learned. So this is like a pattern. And if this son is not, breaking the cycle, he's also taking this as a normal part of relationship between father and son, and he's giving it to the next generation, and so on and so on and so on. So this is only a, example.
That's interesting. That's a great example, and it just makes me think of not only just like obviously the physical trauma that parents put on their kids, but also obviously that psychological aspect as well. And it doesn't have to be, it could certainly be more of like an absence of parenting. I think of my grandparents and my parents in regards to my grandfather was in like the Second World War, and then he parented my dad, and my dad parented me. And there was a lot of incredible things happening during the world at the time my grandfather was a parent. So therefore, he couldn't really have necessarily the time with his child like I do with my 3 and 5-year-old right now. Like, because there is wartime. It was a very stressful, difficult time on the planet. And there wasn't time for my grandfather to be, let's just say, the parent that he would have wished he could have been, because it was a very wild time. And that type of parenting style, without question, you obviously parent how you were parented, unless you are making quite active changes in the way that you want to be able to do that. But sometimes circumstances don't do that. So I'm just using kind of like my own example in this within my friend groups and my family groups that I've seen, that I think that my father was amazing. He was great, but I think that he learned patterns from my grandfather, where he was a lot more maybe absent in regards to like being with me and playing with me and spending as much time. There's also like the societal aspects have changed a lot. Like when I was growing up, my dad worked, my mum was at home, and taking care of the kids was very much a mother thing. And that's massively changed in a generation where, the expectation for fathers to do a lot more parenting is a lot higher. And, I'm certainly blessed for that, because I get to spend so much more time with my kids than my father was ever able to do, given the societal circumstances. So it's not, I just wanted to like paint a little bit of a picture for people that it's, when you think of transgenerational trauma, it's not necessarily that my great grandfather hit my granddad and my granddad hit my father and my father hits me. That's certainly a physical example, which absolutely happens. But also there are patterns within parenting that you might not necessarily see as traumatic, but not having a absent father certainly would impact a young son and a daughter. And if those patterns aren't changed, rectified, or altered in some way, then they very easily continue, I guess, through the generations.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And now about your grandfather, about your father, but there are people outside there, they have no clue about what for example, who are adopted, or for example, my grandfather also was in World War II, and what happened there, and he belonged to the Nazis, but in our family we never talked about this. So also things that are kept like under the carpet. It's about something nobody talks about it, but you feel this. And I have to say, like, children feel a lot, and they feel everything. So they feel also the trauma, and trauma means also like what you just said, things that happen nobody's talking about, because all these feelings like sadness, hopelessness, things that probably your grandfather saw in the war, just not coping with this, just putting it aside, because also during this generation, also men were not allowed to talk about emotions and feelings and things like that, so they are suppressed. they have to be somewhere. So it's probably the kids, the children who feel, because they are so open, everything. So yeah.
Yeah, huge point. And just as you were talking about your experience with your grandfather, I guess not only is there like generational trauma, but there's probably generational shame with a lot of behaviors of certain family members, whether that's just a weird uncle who says horribly inappropriate things, or even an uncle who a lot of people in the family knew was abusive, but they don't want to talk about it because it's like a shame on the family. What will the neighbors think? And then rather with dealing with it and, you know, supporting those victims go through the trauma that they would have experienced, it's kind of just swept under the carpet. And then, you know, those kids who were abused turn into adults and so on and so on. And it's never really addressed. Though that can cause a lot of problems, just kind of sweeping those things under the carpet.
Exactly. And it's interesting that you say, or that you talk about this uncle, because that's what I talk also like in my book about. It was the uncle of my grandmother, like of my mother, who brought a lot of shame and guilt into the family. And it's exactly what you said, what happened. It's not only that it was put under the carpet, but it's also happened a lot of victim shaming, because women were, or girls at this time, not really seen as equal as men. And I talk now about France and Germany, like Europe, you know.
Yep.
And still and still this like is going through all the generations, because I still felt it. I've never been sexually abused but by this uncle, but I knew him, and I really felt as a kid already like there was something wrong. And what brings together with this kind of behavior, like family is everything, like what we were talking in the beginning of, you know, values and everything, like family. In Germany, we say like blood is thicker than water. So there's no possibility to reject your family. You have to like take everything they do and respect them still, even if they are like really abusive with you. So this is something I also want to talk about, like say you can go in no contact, you have the decision, you have the right to say no. Yep. Even if it's somebody from the family, like, you know, and even if you're a woman or a girl, you have to teach all your girls, your little girls, like say no. You don't have to say yes, and to be like a little girl and nice girl, you know. Yeah,
understanding boundaries, I think, is a hugely important thing that we kind of learn as adults, that, you know, you have to have boundaries of things, you know, whether that's a friend who's asking too much or family members who are taking, you know, liberties. We have to have boundaries to kind of preserve our own sanity and preserve our own mental health. And that's without question something that should be integrated into the family setting, to understand that, yeah, you need to be comfortable with saying no, and being comfortable with knowing what to do if no is not taken as an answer. There's some very interesting things wrapped around like boundaries within the family that certainly would support a lot of these younger people who experience, like, you know, in some cases quite horrific things. In regards to this transgenerational trauma piece, how do you know if you have something like that? Like, if you're not consciously aware, you know, we know that young kids who do experience traumatic things and have, you know, PTSD with things, the mind will sometimes alter or fill in or erase the actual reality of the situations. And then, you know, you can go 10, 20, 30, 40 years and these things don't necessarily become a giant problem. And then for a lot of people, they end up becoming just that. How do you think people can actually understand that something that's holding them back now as their adulthood is something that happened from when they were a kid?
Yeah, very good question. So there's several indicators. So one is always look into your relationships. Like if you have, for example, always the same kind of partnership that you are going into, like you have always a partner who is who you don't trust, he's cheating on you, or always when it comes like you are getting to know each other, you feel like, oh, this might be somebody who I want to get to know more, and then just before it gets like really close, it's over. Like if these kind of patterns in a relationship always come always the same, then you have always to ask yourself, what responsibility or what are you bringing into this? Because it's always like, it's very easy when you say, oh, this guy is always cheating on me, or my friend, she's always using me, like I'm like a people pleaser. Like, what is your responsibility in this relationship? Because the good news is you're never a victim in a relationship. I have to say, when you're an adult, when you're a kid, you're always a victim when it comes to abuse. But in the moment you are adult and you have possibilities like money, you can go to seek for help, you can have a therapist, you can go to see coachings and things like this. You are responsibilities. You are responsible, and latest when you become a parent yourself, because you as a dad know exactly, it's very crazy when you become a parent, because you are like watching this little baby and everything is mirroring you. It's like you can't look away from, you know, what you didn't want to see before. It's like, you know, so you have the responsibility. So look into relationship patterns. You can see it also, because I have a lot of female clients that I work with, and I have some clients who are saying like, oh, I'm single since 8 years and it's fine for me. I don't want to be in a relationship. And the women are not 80 years old or 90, they are like 30 or 25. You know, this is like very sad. So it means like there's something relationship wise. So ask yourself and seek for help from outside. Always get like a neutral opinion. Also, what you can feel is, or you can see, is a body symptom. Like if you have, for example, an eating disorder, if you're like very much into controlling something in your life, for example, food, if you find yourself like always burned out because you do a lot for others. And the problem is with our body, I mean, our body is very strong, but at a certain point, our body is like also like, okay, I'm done now, I can't. So you get body symptoms like you're very weak, you have hormonal imbalances, like this is what women a lot experience. Nowadays, a lot more people have cancer when they are younger, like young, you know. I mean, I had cancer when I was 21, and I had a cancer that was like nobody could understand or put it into like, where did it come from? And I believe like your body shows you, okay, now this is not right. You're taking too much from everything, because in my opinion, body, mind, and soul are like one. So these are indicators. And mental health, like when you feel like depressed, when you're a young person and you don't want to get up in the morning and you need pills to, you know, be not even happy, but going to your job, seeing people, like this is not normal. It shouldn't be like this. So if you have like signs like this, go see a doctor, go see a therapist.
Yeah, beautifully said. I think what come out for me from what you're saying there is that we actually have, as adults, a lot of responsibility around the choices in which we make, and especially wrapped around, let's say, relationships, like making the same choices that lead you to the same relationships that lead you to the same outcome. We actually have a lot of responsibility to make alternative choices. And even when it comes to, you know, really not enjoying your job and having to use antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications to kind of get through the struggles that have come from those choices. I think that with allopathic medicine, where you go to the doctor, you tell him what's up, and then he gives you a drug to deal with the problem, I think that's taken a significant amount of personal responsibility out of the healing process. We're actually giving that responsibility away completely, where, we don't actually have to personally reflect. We don't have to make the necessary changes. Human beings don't really like to make significant change because it can lead to places of unfamiliarity and places that are uncomfortable. But I think we understand now that if you do want to make a significant change in the positive, you are going to have to think unfamiliar thoughts. You're going to have to experience unfamiliar emotions and behaviors, and that ultimately leads to a place of something new, of creation. So yeah, the choices and personal responsibility is a huge big thing, but it's important to recognize that as adults we do have a lot of choices and options and responsibility, but as children it's completely different. We're supposed to have caregivers that love us and support us, and they're supposed to protect us from a lot of things and teach us how to become adults. A lot of people, unfortunately, aren't in that type of an environment. So it's just it's an interesting aspect of the I guess the healing process.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you said about what feels familiar, because the problem is when you come out from a family system where you never really have been loved unconditionally. There have been issues relationship wise, so you bring it to the first partnership, the second partnership, and everything. It might feel like very unfamiliar when you meet somebody who is good, and you feel like, I can't trust this because I don't know this, it's new. And it's very strange because from outside you would always say well, be happy now. But there are really people who are it's like an addiction. You get addicted, your nervous system also get addicted. I think a lot of people don't know about it's the same thing as you're drinking or taking drugs, because your adrenaline and your cortisol levels are so high that at a certain point you need this drama. And if you have had this drama all your life and then you get into a normal relationship, it can really feel boring. And it's and this is it, because drama, where is the drama llama? And then you choose sometimes even the narcissist and not the nice guy. And this is saying oh, I always choose the bad guys. Well, yes, because your brain knows it's not good, but your body and your system feels attracted by this because this is what you know and this is what feels familiar. So it's sometimes more painful to go out of this familiar structure than try it. And the older you get, the harder it is.
It's funny. So I think a lot of people experience that or know somebody who's kind of gone through their 20s dating the wrong type of guy or the wrong type of girl, and then the person they end up marrying is completely opposite to the characteristics of that kind of original attraction. It's very, very interesting. So you wrote a book called I Love You When, and discover the patterns of covert narcissistic abuse in families, free yourself, and chart a course to break the cycle of transgenerational trauma. I mean, why did you write that book, and who's it for? Who's the audience for that?
So I newly say that it's the book that I wrote that I would have liked to have a few years ago, because covert narcissism is quite new in the media or what you read about. And
Sorry,
it's totally
what's that?
different.
What's covert narcissism?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So covert narcissism, like, okay, we know malignant narcissism, like overt narcissism, like, you know, people who are like very, I'm the best, I'm gorgeous. They are like, it's the stage before psychopaths. They have no empathy. They are like, you know, they are God. But covert narcissists, and this is like 75% of women are covert narcissists. Not 70. Like when it gets to narcissism, it's like covert narcissists are mainly women, because socially wise it's more accepted, because covert narcissists are playing the victim role. They manipulate people through the victim role, because narcissism is always about manipulation, because everything that the narcissist does is to get something from a supply. Means they don't love, they don't know how it feels being loved. So what they need is somebody who is in their control. And to get this control is through manipulation. So what overt narcissists do is they manipulate through money, through power, through, if you don't do this, I'm going to fire you. I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. Victim role, like covert narcissist, is like they manipulate through, if you don't do this, I'm going to be so sad. If you don't do this, I'm going to be so disappointed. I have done everything. I have brought you to life, and I gave everything for you. Like, and this is what a lot of mothers do. Not a lot, I have to say. It's the narcissistic bubble. I'm very glad to say, like, most of families are healthy. Yeah, but this is something that comes through sometimes in mothers, and I had a mom like this, unfortunately, so I exactly know how it feels. So it's like through, oh, you are my child, I have given everything for you, so you owe me something. And it's through shame and guilt. If you don't do this, I'm not happy, I deserve this too. So everything you do as a child is it the daughter, the son, you do it for the mom. If you don't do it for the mom, you're not allowed to do it. It's like you live for her. So this is the covert thing, and this is probably the most complicated field for somebody in this kind of system to discover, because from outside everybody would say, oh, but your mom is so nice and she's so charming and you want to do everything for your mom. But I talk about narcissistic moms who are who would prefer you to really be like living in the cellar alone,
Right.
taking care of them until they die, because they don't give a shit what happens after. You know what I mean? It's like,
I know what you mean. Do you know what's really funny is at the beginning of that, I thought you said COVID narcissist, and then I quickly realized it was covert. So I just wanted to make sure that people, because I was like, what's a COVID narcissist? That sounds amazing, and I'll bet you there's plenty of them. So that was that's interesting. But you were talking about covert with a T at the end, narcissism, and that was a really great breakdown. And without question, people have experienced individuals like that. And I feel like that they're certainly in a minority, I would guess, because a lot of people can kind of hopefully break out of those patterns and recognize that that's a very self-serving role and a very it's just completely guilt-ridden way to interact, especially with a child. That's an interesting topic. So thank you very much for expressing that, and I'll make sure that there's a very clear link to the book in there. But a lot of your work is based around narcissism, right? And are there some clear links in how that connects with this transgenerational trauma?
I would say not sure. I have to say, like, when you're traumatized, what the link is probably is when you're traumatized and you, for example, split up the mother role, like the caregiver role, because your mother traumatized you, for example. Then what your system also does, you don't only split up as a child your mother role, the mother role, but you also split up your own abilities when you are becoming a mom yourself. So what happens when a narcissist is, how you say in English, I don't want to say grows up. It's when people are traumatized so hard that narcissist is really hard. They are not born as narcissists. This is like, 100% sure. So something happens very bad in their childhood. So they split up all their emotions. And when you talk about generational trauma, then you would say, like in this case with narcissism together means the emotional capacities in this family system are dead. So now a new child is born. So there's only one or two ways, like it's an empath growing up afterwards or a narcissist too. I have a twin brother. So I have, been like the empath. I'm the scapegoat. Nobody talks to me anymore because I spoke out about it. Okay. My twin brother is like, he became a millionaire when he was 30 years old. He's like, he doesn't care about people. He never had friends, only if he could use them. It's like we were like this. So, but in general, when it comes to generational trauma, I have to say there are a lot of traumatic events. When we look at the Holocaust, for example, what happens there, and the trauma can be healed in the family system. Mm-hmm. It can be given from one to the other generation, but there's possibilities that the son or grandson generation can talk to the generation that got traumatized, and then it's possible to heal. So this is normality.
So you as an I totally understand what you mean. But you as the empath within your family dynamic, were those empathetic qualities nurtured, or is it just something that just you couldn't not be an empath?
I had to do it as a survival mode, and I'm still working on it to not use it. Because what empaths, I am very thankful now. I just got 40 years old, as I said. I'm thankful now, but there were times when I said, like, I would love to be like just an asshole, just somebody who's not, just honestly, like, not thinking about it. But it's not easy to put it off, because it's like I get into a room and I exactly feel the need. I feel it. So it is a talent, I always say, because I work a lot of with archetypes from C.G. Jung. So I take like a deficit as a talent, but it's really hard to still work with it through daily life. Because when you go in a supermarket, it's like, and this is also what I think is like ADHD coming from, and this also sticks everything together. Like, I'm just talking like, I'm not a therapist, but I feel like a lot of people who are like very open and very empathetic, they feel a lot and sometimes too much. So it's sometimes good and sometimes it's not really helping in my daily life. So I don't know about you, how you feel. Like, I don't know, but but it is a survival mode.
I've certainly become more empathetic as I've got older, and my wife is a strong empath for sure. Okay. And I totally understand that it's a superpower, but it's also a curse, because it's very challenging to sometimes to deal with that. And energy is incredibly powerful, like you're talking about. I think it's a great example you were saying, is when you walk into a room and you're feeling what everyone else is feeling. That's just a very strong testament to the fact that everything that we experience, whether that's light or sound or the energy giving off from somebody's anger or their rage or their love, like it's a frequency. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And our bodies are these incredible electrochemical biocomputers, I guess, that are constantly feeling the energy and the frequency from outside of us, whether that's a Wi-Fi router, my computer screen here, or the love and admiration from my child with a smile. You know, it's all
Exactly.
energy, it's all frequency. And some people, just like some people can see better, and some people can hear better, and some people can feel better. It's without question a thing, and I think for a lot of people who don't actually live with an empath or understand what that is, it can be challenging to kind of understand that. But I think that you can have a lot of sympathy with it. But yeah, as you say, it's a superpower and a curse for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's move on from that, because it's a huge topic and it's very interesting. But I just wanted to just finish up with your recommendations, like in regards to strategies or advice to offer people who are dealing with, a narcissistic family member, because you've dealt with one for a long time.
Yeah. So first advice is, if you have already done coachings, therapy, name it, and you still feel like something is not, moving on, what is always interesting is look at the part in your family that you feel like, oh, I don't need to look at this because this was always perfect. I experienced this a lot with my clients, and I experienced it myself. I've always been very good with my mother because I always did everything that she wanted, but I could only understand afterwards. So when you have a father that is always the bad guy, and you've always dealt with this with a psychologist or somebody, and still you feel something is wrong, look also on the side that looks from outside good. I mean, best case is nothing is wrong, but normally if you're still showing symptoms, it's wrong.
Yeah.
And also what is very important with when it comes to abuse, victims or people who are in a relationship with a narcissist, what they always also do is they cover it up. They enable it also. So it's not always victim and abuser. So it's also there's one. It's if you're not ready to get out of the relationship, and I know a lot of people who are in relationships for 14, for example, years with somebody, and they want to get out and break out, and then after 2 weeks of drama, they get into the same pattern again. You from outside have no chance to help them, but this person in the relationship needs to seek for help outside, and always seek for neutral help. I always say the best people who can help you are neutral helpers, not friends, because friends are always bringing their own story in. They also, this is something I experienced, healthy people or people who have grown up in healthy systems, they can't even imagine what is happening. They can't even, think about a betrayal trauma is for them something that somebody made in Hollywood.
Sure.
Or, so you need somebody who is really neutral and an expert. Go to seek help. Go to a therapist, and also go. I mean, there are very good coaches nowadays. You don't need to see a therapist, and get help, and you deserve a good life. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That was wonderful, wise words at the end there. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think sometimes speaking to a stranger is without question the most beneficial thing that you can actually do to get some just rational questions coming into you. And huge important point. Marie, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Can you just let us know how people can connect with you and learn more and get your book?
Sure. So my book is available on Amazon, and I have a website that is www.mariebirtel.com. And you can reach out to me. I have a group. I work with narcissistic victims in English, in German, and in French. So always reach out to me. I'm happy.
Beautiful, Marie. Well, thank you again so much for coming on to the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that is it for this episode of True Hope Cast, the official podcast of True Hope Canada. I'll leave links in the show notes so you can connect with Marie and grab her book and check out her work. Yeah, if you want to leave us a review on iTunes, feel free, and Spotify for a star review. But that is it for this week. We'll see you soon.